following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Bronx Roots. I've got the two Bronx mavens with me, Michael Preminger and David Hubler. Start with you, Michael. How in the hell are you?
Pretty good on both. I'm fine. I'm fine, actually.
Good. Family's good?
Family's very good. They're very good. I'm okay.
Good.
They're very good.
Good. Then you're very good as an offshoot. Let me put it to you that way.
Yeah.
If they're
okay.
good, you
I'll take
all right.
That.
All right. How about you, David? You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. A little better than okay. Not 100% great, but it'll do for the time being.
Good. Keep it that way.
Absolutely.
And I wish you both a very, very happy New Year. This is
You too.
It's unbelievable how time goes so quickly. The older one gets. Just
that's so true. That really is. 2012, 2020. See already.
Yeah, right. Look how fast. Yeah. 8 years just went by.
8 years. Push. Pop. See, that's why I years ago I learned this trick, and I do it every year around the 31st of December. I take out my checkbook, and even though checks today are not as useful as they once were, or as you don't need the date as much, what I do is I go in there on like the 30th or 31st, and where it has the year space, I put in the new year, and I do that for about 5 or 6 checks, so that by the time I get to that last check that's been remember what year it is. So I can, because usually a lot of people will continue to put in the old year, and this way you don't do that. You purposely insert the coming year a day or two before. Good idea.
Now, just to remember where you left the checkbook.
Yeah, well, that's true. But Virgin, people are not using checks anymore. I mean,
that's true.
I pay a few bills by check, but basically, you wave your phone at everything, and I don't do that yet, but because I don't know how to do that.
Well, I learned that there's a way when you're paying for stuff, you can put your credit card or your debit card in the machine 2 different ways. You could swipe it or put it in and straight in.
Yeah, right. In that little slot.
Yeah, and I was new to the putting it in straight, and there are some machines that won't even take a swipe. That's all you have to do is put it in that way. So I had to be taught by people in the store. Excuse me, I don't get out much. Can you tell me how to do this?
It's sort of the equivalent of being in a foreign country and not knowing the currency, and you hold out your hand with a bunch of, and you let the clerk or whoever take the right amount out without doing anything, and you hope he's honest. Yeah. When
you lived in London, did you have to get what
the
hell was that? When you lived in London, did you have to get adjusted to a halfpenny?
Well, I tell you the truth, we had a double adjustment. When we first got there, of course, they were on the old pound, shilling, pence system, and that took about a good year to figure out. Coming into toward the end of the second year, the Queen, in her wisdom, decided to change it over to pounds and pence and do away with shillings. And so I had to learn a whole new system. Now the pounds and pence system is predicated on 100. So 100 pence equal a pound. Well, that that took the locals a long time to figure out, and it did me only in the sense that the transferring pounds to dollars. I had gotten so used to pounds and shillings and pence. I mean, it was such a cockamamie system. It really was, because there were 20 shillings equal to pound. And let's see, what was it? A half crown was worth 2 shillings and 6 pence. A crown was 5 shillings. I mean,
Already I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean, right. Oh, and then 21 pounds. What the hell was that? That was another. Well, no, that was weight. Your stone. If you weighed a stone, you weighed 14 pounds. So,
and if you weighed a stone stoned, it could be any weight.
Yeah, right. But no, they only use that for people. But the currency was really. But I had solved it, because what was happening the whole time. In fact, it happened just within a week of us arriving there. I think, if I recall correctly, they devalued the pound. So every time they devalued the pound, you had to figure out what that was in relation to the dollar. And so so that took a while. When it got to $2.40 to the pound, that was a fairly nice round number to figure out pounds, shillings, and pence. So and the worst part about it was you talk about a halfpenny. The halfpenny was pretty much gone by that time, but the penny was there, and the penny was like the size of a sewer cover. It was huge. And if you went to a store and you paid with cash, which everyone did then, because this was really ancient times. You came out, your pocket was just hanging with all this change that you'd get. It was really quite awful. And so it was good when they switched over. But in switching over and eliminating the shilling, what happened was, and I'm talking about the coins mostly, but all of the slot machines, parking meters, anything else, they became more expensive, because you went straight up to a shilling, and you couldn't use halfpennies or pennies. And anyway, it got very, very confusing to the locals too. Now, for the locals, it should have been easier. In fact, the equivalent of that to us is if we move to the decimal system. 100 meters. How long is 100 meters? That it would be the same equivalent. You go into a simpler system, but you're so used to this more complex system, and let's face it, 12 inches to a foot. Whose foot was that? Henry VIII, I think they say. No, so we're on a more complex system, and the rest of the world has gotten to a simple system. But I tell you, before I don't want to hog this whole thing, but I'll tell you my biggest complaint now, and I just had a letter in the Washington Post to complain about this, which shows you how serious I am. Everyone is saying, "Oh, it's a new decade, a new decade." No, it's not a new decade. At the end of this new year, it will be a new decade.
Somebody I know also wrote the same thing on the Facebook thing. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, because we don't count 0 to 9. When we start counting with 1, and we go to a digit that ends in a 0, like 1 to 10, 1 to 20. So the era, the decade, actually will end with 2020, and then a new decade will begin at 2021. I can't convince anyone of this.
Well, it's difficult in baseball, because you could say who are the best players of the 1950s.
Well, that's fine. That we're not talking about. Yeah, that's fine, because when you talk about the 50s, but when you talk about the decade, You really have to start.
when they say the decade of the 50s, there are books written that break down baseball by the decade, and
if you say the 50s, that's fine, because you have 1950 to 59. That's fine because you're referring to one of the digits, the 5. But when you talk about a decade, anyway, I'm one of the few people. My letter ended with, we better start talking about the decade properly, or the flat Earth people are going to get on us. So that was I was waiting for a big rebuttal from all complaints. How dare you? So far I haven't seen any. Maybe the Post is not publishing those. I don't know, but I had to sort of jump through.
I wouldn't expect you to get complaints.
Well, I might get nasty notes,
Yeah. But
what are you doing?
As I say, a friend said the same thing, the exact same thing, and then there was articles or an article, the 10 best movies of the decade. Mm-hmm. Well, not really, as you say.
Right, and
the year.
Yes, and the very next day in the Post they had a thing about the best films of the decade.
Oh, okay, same thing.
Yeah. So
it's called semantics.
Yeah, you can't win. You can't win on these arguments.
No.
But I just like to make my voice heard, because if you recall, one of the great faux pas in terms of numbering was the what was it when we turned over to 2001, 2000.
The millennium.
2K. No.
The millennium.
The Y2K issue.
Oh, that's, yeah.
And everybody thought all the computers were going to just go screwy, because you started, instead of with a 1, you're now starting with a 2. And it didn't happen. But everybody was panicking. People, especially companies, they backed up everything, and they were worried. They hired tech guys to come in and make sure their computers would be working the next morning. Nothing happened.
And then they had people spend their life savings on buying yeast and putting it in their garage in case they wouldn't be able to get food and what have you.
Was that a California?
That was
California.
People, yes.
Really?
They stock up in California. They stock up for earthquakes. Food army food. That comes in packets.
See,
and
that's we just knew that Christides and what's the other shopper? All the supermarkets would be open the next day. We didn't worry about that sort of thing.
There were the paranoid ones.
That's crazy. Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Did that happen in Los Angeles?
I don't remember that at all. But then again, I don't have my earthquake survival foods or anything. I just have a bottle of water and a bagel. That's it. So.
Not even some cream cheese to go along?
Now, I want to know, is it a New York bagel?
Is it a New York? Yes.
Okay.
You can get them. You can get good ones in Los Angeles. Yeah, but the flyover states, not very much.
No.
And it's important. Yeah, it's important to know where you can get a good bagel. It's like, it's like survival.
It is.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
if it's in a package, don't buy it.
That's right. Absolutely. Rule number 1.
Okay. Hey, I've been asking all the guests, all the podcasters, what's your reaction to Trump's killing of this general? Do you think it's overkill, no pun intended, a diversion from the election, from the
campaign,
from the impeachment? what do you think? Was it a good move? Was it a bad move? Michael, start with you.
I think it was a bad move from what I've been reading, and you see the people on the streets in Iran. This doesn't put us in. They want to kill us, and they're not a good move. And whether it has taken away the news about the impeachment, whether he did it on purpose or not, I don't know if he has the brains to do something like that on purpose. But it just, it's so tough because you read about that this guy was responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths. But boy, oh boy, we could be in for another war. Did you see
another extended war in the Mideast? Yeah.
Oh yeah, but could it be World War III? Could it be another World War?
I don't think. First of all, I don't think Iran could bomb us, and I don't think Russia is going to start World War III over this. I do think that I don't know what to think. I really don't. When he talks about having 52 targets, some of them cultural, I would think that if he wanted to just make a statement, he could wipe out their nukes, he could bomb military stuff, but saying that he's going to bomb Iran of their cultural history and what have you, that's craziness. So that's my reaction.
Well, he is crazy. He is. And I saw a picture where it said the draft hotline, not hotline, but it looked like kids are running to enlist.
Where in Iran?
No, here.
Oh, really?
That's what I saw on Yahoo.
Wow.
That the what's the word? The phone line or whatever, broke down. The phone line. The phone lines are the.
Yeah, they're also talking about reinstating the draft.
Oh.
They threw that out there, maybe as a trial balloon or whatever, just to get opinions.
Who's they?
Yeah.
Well, I can't quantify it yet because I was scrolling Facebook this morning, and I'll send you both this article. If it's, I think it was Yahoo News that they're talking about, or Trump is talking about reinstating the draft.
Ooh.
Well, I don't think he can do that on his own, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think that has to be an act of Congress, since it took an act of Congress to end the draft. It's
he's not showing too much respect for Congress at this point.
No, not at all. And eventually, the Republican side is going to realize that they've been snookered and they're totally useless. In fact, as an equal branch of the government, they're not acting like they're playing their part at all, especially in the Senate. So we'll see. But the thing I think, what concerns me in two ways is, one, if this thing accelerates and people begin to realize what a nut job has been elected to the White House come November, there could be a groundswell of opposition to him. However, on the other hand, if we're engaged in some sort of Middle East war on the ground, or boots on the ground sort of thing, the history of the country is you don't change presidents in the middle of a war. Unless the president dies, which is what happened with Roosevelt. That's why he was elected 4 times. So, on the one hand, this whole taking out of the general could be considered a good move. On the other hand, it could be a disastrous move, and we don't know yet. The Iranians will yell and scream. The sad thing is that Iran, ever since their revolution in the 70s, late 70s, Iran has always been, first of all, it's not an Arab country, for one thing. And they've always been...
but they support the Arabs in Palestine.
But the point is that that the sad part, that's what I was getting at, was that it's a very, very highly educated population. And there's so many Iranians who have had to leave the country and emigrate here to the U.S. Especially the Jewish population of Iran, which was fairly large, and lasted for centuries and centuries, and many of them have emigrated to the U.S. And so, I've known a couple from Voice of America, which had a Persian language service. So I knew a couple of these guys. And, they weren't crazy radicals. They were interested in furthering the country and furthering their economic situation. But sadly, it goes back to us, sheltering the Shah, and that shouldn't have happened. Yes. But that's in hindsight, you can say that. But so that really ticked off the Iranians for sheltering this guy who was, their murderer and their own personal dictator. So that can't be undone. But I'm just curious. I'm not curious. I'm concerned as to what will happen.
I think you made the point about the election is so what's correct that could happen.
Sure.
People will, he's our president, and so we have to keep him in there. My God.
Yeah.
That'd be awful.
Yeah. Now I don't credit him with having the political astuteness to figure this out in advance. But there are some people behind him.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Yeah. What's that little evil gnome?
Miller?
Yeah, the bald-headed gnome. He's such an evil. He looks evil. I mean, he reminds me of not the Flintstones. What's the long-running cartoon show which I never watched?
Simpsons.
The Simpsons. Yes, thank you. The boss.
Yes.
He reminds me of him. I've seen a few episodes where the boss is kind of a nasty guy, and Miller reminds me of him. He's just evil.
Well, anybody who worships Roy Cohn as Cohn does is going to hire a bunch of those type of people.
Yeah, good point.
Shifty-eyed bastards. That's just.
And in fact, Miller even resembles Roy Cohn a little. A younger version. Terrible people.
Exactly.
What scares me is that war will make his base very happy.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, no question about that. they've been gunning for a war.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't matter who it was with. You know.
Right.
And armament is such a big part of our economy. How many guns we sell around the world, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Not just guns, all sorts of tanks and aircraft and anything that can be used as a weapon in one form or another. We sell. Yeah.
Well, in the old days when they had Kissinger in charge, he would get Iraq to fight Iran and vice versa.
Well, they did.